If infidelity used to smell like cologne on a shirt or lipstick on a glass, in 2025 it ships with push notifications. The first ping hit my phone at 2:07 p.m. on a Tuesday while I was kneeling on the floor of a server room, wrist deep in a rack that hummed like an angry beehive. Front door unlocked. Code 4 Yas. I'd labeled my wife's code, Astronomas Maikaner 3, the cleaner, the 3 to tunit. Neurotanes wasn't supposed to exist. I stared at the alert until the text blurred. The room was 14 degrees Celsius to keep the hardware honest, but I felt hot in my jacket, like the air had been changed out while I wasn't looking. I wiped my palm on my pants and told myself it was a glitch. We'd had them before. The deadbolt sometimes reported locked when it meant distracted. An hour later, another ping. Living room motion, continuous for 30 miles. The system only sends that message if the motion graph looks like choreography, not a draft moving the curtains. I watch the blue bar stutter, then roll. I'm an incident responder for a hospital system, which is a pompous way of saying I spend my days reading logs, chasing anomalies, and telling anxious people whether the thing they think is a problem is actually a problem. I know what noise looks like when it's dressing up as signal. I know what signal looks like when it's trying to be polite. At 3:21 p.m., a final alert, Goodnight Scene Activated. Our Goodnight Scene dims the lights, lowers the blinds, sets the thermostat to 19, and plays Rain at 15% on the speaker. We use it at 11. Or 1, if we're human. Not in the middle of a daylight weekday, unless someone wants the day to lie. I drove home with the reckless caution of a person who wants to arrive both quickly and slowly. In the elevator, I watched the numbers count with the pace of regret. Our hallway smelled like the neighbor's astonishing garlic, like the building was trying to bulk up for winter. Inside, the apartment was too curated. Lamps at 30%, curtains drawn. A glass on the coffee table with a lip print that wasn't mine and could be my wife's and therefore might be no one's business but mine, but also 2 glasses would have been clearer. One looks like a rehearsal. Maya? I called, though I knew she wouldn't answer. Her shift at the gallery ran till 6. The room had the exact post-scene hush my own scripts create. Smart silence, like hotel quiet. I checked the lock log again. Code 4, accepted. No label. I could have let it go. I could have chalked it up to an update and gone back to pretending our marriage was a stable build. But curiosity is the opposite of sleep. I opened the router console and pulled recent leases. An unfamiliar device sat proud in the list. Miles' iPhone. Vendor Apple. Last seen at 1502. RSSI 42, which meant inside. DHCP had even been neat enough to assign a friendly host name. Miles, like the unit between you and what you thought was yours. There are a dozen innocent explanations for a foreign phone on your network in daylight. The cleaner's new boyfriend, a neighbor leeching, a delivery guy who parked in the hall long enough to breathe. Innocent explanations are generous until your body votes otherwise. I stood in the kitchen and looked at a bowl of clementines we both forget until they are embarrassed. 2 missing, a peel curled in the compost like a punctuation mark. I didn't go cinematic. No knife hidden behind back, no flinging open closets like doors can end narratives. I sat at our dining table and watched the motion graph simmer down to an honest line. At 3:49, the door locked. Code 4, accepted. A minute later, hallway motion short. A minute after that, the elevator bell, small and smug. I texted Maya, "How's the reopening prep? Need me to bring Prosecco?" She replied quickly, "You're an angel. Yes, please. Love you." Blue heart. Blue is her gallery's brand color. She uses it sparingly. It landed like a coin in a jar I hadn't noticed was empty. When she got home at 9, I had the Prosecco and a smile that fit poorly. She went straight to the sink to wash her hands like someone separating the day in the room with soap. The smell rose, the gallery's acrylics and lemon cleaner. The faintness of a dozen bodies pretending to admire the same piece. No clinical citrus, nothing I could pin to someone else's shirt. Her hair was still up, the way she keeps it when she wants to hold words in place. "How was your day?" she asked back to me. Strong neck offered like an invitation a husband should not read as a test. "Quiet," I said. "Yours?" "Loud." She dried her hands and turned like someone committing a small bravery. We had a walk-in collector. Very specific taste. I think he's going to buy the Nebula diptych. He? I said lightly, and hated the man my voice made me sound like. She shrugged, something between a defense and a dance. They, them. Money is money. We ate, sat too far apart on the sofa, the way you do when you're being careful not to turn into the couple you're afraid you are, and watched a show that told neat lies about messy people. Under the blanket, my knee shook. Under the blanket, nothing shook on her. I didn't bring up Code 4. I didn't bring up Miles. You can be a patient man and a coward in the same hour. I am fluent in both. 2 nights later, I woke at 2:13 a.m. to the hiss of my laptop, the way fans sound, like thoughts when they're thinking too hard. Maya slept on her side facing the window, hands tucked under her cheek like the body remembers how to look like a saint when it's exhausted. I slid out of bed and padded to the living room, where the router light pulsed the steady heartbeat I programmed it to lie with. The leases showed Miles' iPhone. Again, this time at 21:56 early evening, and a device called Sonos Guest that should not exist. I clicked through logs. A playlist had been queued on the living room speaker at 22:03, Neon Motel. We don't name our playlists like that. Ours say boring things like dinner and rain, and try this one, you'll hate it, but trust me. I tapped into Now Playing History. Track 3, Hotel of the Floating World. Track 7, Body Keeps the Score. Whoever this Miles was had a sense of humor I didn't like. I scrolled further and found the thing that melted something normal in me. At 15:04 that Tuesday, bedroom sensor offline. A minute later, motion, bedroom. Offline meant the battery died or someone removed it. The bracket's adhesive fails every 6 months, I could hear my reasonable voice say. Yes, and it had held for 9. I did not sleep. At 6:10, I made coffee and poured it down the sink. When Maya shuffled out, hair animal, shirt creased like a confession, I wanted to be the version of me that made pancakes to give our day an intention. Instead, I said, "Who is Miles?" She didn't do the TV thing. No dropped glass, no fumbled story. She frowned. "Who?" "Your friend with the excellent playlist." She stood straighter, which is where some people keep their lies. "You went through my phone?" "I looked at our network," I said, "the same way I look at a log when my hospital's MRI suite starts talking to a Russian server." The joke missed. "I don't know a Miles," she said, each word unmuddied. "Okay," I said, like the word could erase data. At work, I watched security feeds until the inside of my eyes went snow. At lunch, I almost called our couple's therapist, then remembered we hadn't booked a session since April because we were busy. At 3:12, Code 4, accepted. At 3:47, Goodnight Scene activated. This time I didn't go home. I parked down the block and walked up the fire stairs like a chase scene I didn't audition for. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched like a decision. Our door was cracked. I heard voices that weren't voices, the soft edges of the rain track, the tiny electronic click of the thermostat telling itself to be 19, the muffled hush of slippers on wood. I knocked. Silence held its breath. A second later, the door opened. Maya stood there in one of my old university shirts and the defense face you make when you expected a math quiz and got French. "Ethan," she said, "what are you doing here?" "I live here," I said, then hated myself for making a joke walk on broken legs. "Can I come in?" She stepped back. The living room looked like our living room. No jackets that weren't ours. No shoes we hadn't bought. No man posed on the sofa like a warning. It was only when I turned toward the kitchen that I saw him. He sat at the table with his hands folded like someone who had been taught to respect a room. He was my age-ish, maybe a slow year younger, with a face that would look handsome or ordinary, depending on whether he was about to apologize. His hair was harmless. He wore no cologne that's been marketed within the last decade. He stood. "Miles," he said. "It would have been funny if it weren't blood." "We don't have a Miles," I said to the room, to my wife, to the part of my body that was already writing the report. Maya rubbed her wrist in habit from when she used to wear a band that tracked her sleep and judged her for the sin of being human. "Ethan," she said, This is stupid, but this is Julian, not Miles. Miles is the name of his old phone. He never changed it. Julian, I repeated, as if that would cause the data to reindex. As in the collector? Julian glanced at the wall as if there might be a painting he could hide inside. I'm not a collector, he said mildly. I write for Frame, the arts site. I buy sometimes. He gestured toward the living room like buying a rug, lived in the same genus as buying a life. You used our guest network, I said, pointing at the air like I could pin the offense to a corkboard. It was offered, he said, the QR code on your counter. I had made the code during a dinner party in August when we still believed in friends. I had labeled it, welcome, because hospitality is a spell, and sometimes I like to believe in spells. Maya moved between us by a half step, not because she thought there would be a fight. There wasn't a fight in me, but because she's a curator by training and knows where objects should live in space. Julian came to see the nebula pieces, she said. He's doing a feature on Layla Ree. At our apartment, I said. The lighting at the gallery is not her light, Maya said. She said hers like the word wore a dress. Julian held up both palms. I'll go. Stay, I said, though it felt like telling a flame to relax. He left anyway. He did it politely, like a man who has learned that leaving is a form of respect when the room is not yours. The door closed softly, the latch resisting the romance of a slam by doing the job it was born to do. We stood in our curated quiet. The rain track hushed at 15%. The thermostat hummed. Somewhere the fridge added its minimalism. How long, I asked. Maya flinched, not at the content, at the cadence. 2 months, she said. Honesty is sometimes a hand grenade gently set down. I waited for anger to be a fuel. It wasn't. What came was a flood of small, stupid images. The clementine peel, the rain sound. Code 4, a playlist named like a motel. The missing binder of seasonal maps we do not own because we do not live in a mountain town. And still, somewhere in us, we believe in weather. Our therapist would say I was catastrophizing. My body calls it incident response. Is it? I started, then wanted to walk out of my own mouth. Yes, she said, no wobble, no alibi, just the noun. There are many kinds of betrayal. Some are bar fights, some are slow leaks. Ours felt like a software patch that had been quietly applied 3 updates ago while I kept clicking. Remind me later. Why him, I asked, which is not the same as why not me, but lives in the same neighborhood. Maya sat on the arm of the sofa like a person sitting on the edge of a truth. He listens, she said, without solving. He doesn't make me feel like a ticket in a queue. I solve, I said, as if the word could be both defense and resume. You fix, she said, kinder than I deserved. Even when I want you to watch me want something broken. It wasn't a line. It was not even a good sentence. It was true enough to make me feel like an accident report. I could inventory the months that got us here. The 3 failed IUIs, the way sex began to feel like an exam we were both too honest to cheat on and too proud to fail. The therapist who said, thoughtfully, that intimacy and outcome are not synonyms and then billed us in crisp emails. The day I came home to find Maya sitting on the floor in the bedroom, with the closet doors open like wings and a tiny hiking boot in her lap she didn't know how to put away. There isn't one weak layer. There are many, and sunlight is generous enough to find them all. You used a new door code, I said, because the part of me that needed a tidy list was not done being tacky in a crisis. Who created it? I did, she said. I didn't want the gallery code used here. And you didn't. Tell me. She nodded toward my phone like a cop might to a dash cam. I figured you'd know. Sometimes I hate the man I am exactly when I am technically correct. Julian stayed gone. We did not stage the confrontation scene where I deck him or he decks me, and we both feel like a particular kind of man. We talked. We made a plan. We felt in small, armored bursts. She slept in the bedroom. I slept on the sofa. I cued rain at 15% and stared at the ceiling until it taught me nothing. At some point around 4, one of our neighbors argued with someone about a rideshare, and I almost cried from the normalcy. The next morning I made coffee and forgot to drink it. Maya came out in a dress I had bought her 2 years ago, and downplayed ever since. She looked beautiful in the way that makes you suspect the word should be a verb. She put on the tiny gold hoop earrings her grandmother wore in photos that predate both of us. She said, "I'm not asking you to forgive me." I appreciated the grammar. "What are you asking?" I said. "To tell you the whole thing without arranging it," she said, trembling in that way bodies do when their owner is done pretending. "And to let me be brave for the first time since we started chasing a life the way you chase a bug across a code window." So she told me. She told me Julian came into the gallery in September and stood too close to a painting, not because he was arrogant, but because he was nearsighted and refused laser correction because his father had gone blind and he had foolish superstitions about not tempting optics. She told me he came back 3 times and brought coffee and asked good questions and didn't pretend to know artists he didn't. She told me she told him about the child-shaped room in our house and how we'd stopped going in. She told me the first time they kissed it felt less like appropriation than a second language she had forgotten she was fluent in. She told me the last time they kissed last night, she knew it would be the last because she could no longer hold 2 versions of herself without becoming a bad museum. People like to design infidelity like a maze, but a lot of it is doors. We made a schedule. We would step away, not to be noble, but to be competent. I would stay at my friend Cam's for 2 weeks while she stayed here. Then we would swap. We would not tell our parents immediately because our mothers use news like artillery. We would cancel the reopening party at our apartment and say the floors were being refinished. We would not sleep with anyone until we had made a choice we wanted to live in. It was strange how good we were at project management when the project was grief. I packed a bag like men pack too many socks, no belt. I powered down automations one by one until the apartment went honest. No more Goodnight Scene, no more rain track, no more gentle lies about heating. I deleted Code 4mar. I left Code 2mx as a courtesy to the person I still loved. On my way out, I heard the soft hum of the fridge and wanted to apologize to it for expecting it to hold. Cam's place smelled like bike grease and masculinity that had learned how to be kind. He had a spare room with a bed that complained, a plant that was trying, and a view of a brick wall that felt like an honest friend. I lay there and didn't sleep and did not sleep and learned that a man can exist on tea and podcasts for a while if he picks the episodes where people fail and recover without being heroic about it. Julian texted me on day 3. "I'll disappear if you want me to. I didn't mean to ruin anything you weren't already bleeding from." He sent it like a person who had thought about the harm and not only his own guilt. I stared at the message for an hour, then wrote back, "Don't text me again. Be decent to her. Be decent to yourself. Buy the damn painting if you're going to keep talking about her light." He didn't reply. Good. Some silences are correct. On day 5, our therapist had a cancellation, and I took it like a citizen. I told her exactly what I tell hospital staff when the MRI chatters in Russian. Here are the logs. Here are the times. Here is where I was stupid. Here is where I was human. Here is where the system did what the system was designed to do, even if I don't like the output. She nodded like a person trained in both, and ah. She said things about intimacy and outcome that she has said before and that I needed to hear from a different angle. Then she asked the question incident responders hate. What does recovery look like if not a return to the previous state? I said, it looks like building a new system, one that doesn't schedule sex like a sprint, one that doesn't make my wife a ticket. I did not say, it looks like a different person. I did not say, it looks like me, alone, but not lonely. Those were both drafts. On day 9, Maya asked to meet. We chose a park where grown men become earnest about their dogs. It was cold enough to make us honest. She wore the blue scarf we bought in Lisbon the year we thought we were good at being people. She looked like spring holding a winter that refused to budge. I ended it, she said before the hellos were done. With him. She didn't make a speech. She made a cut. It isn't because of optics. It's because I want to do the next part of my life with the person who taught me how to be brave before I learned how to perform it. If that person is you, I want to rebuild. If it isn't, I won't pretend I deserve your patience. I waited for the swell, the music, the tidy narrative arc. It didn't come. What came was a small, stubborn warmth, like a radiator that's been hit and still tries. Behind Maya, a kid threw a stick, and the dog looked at the stick with religious confusion. We both laughed, and it felt like moving a couch and finding the missing spoon. Okay, I said, because that's always what I say when I'm putting off a better sentence. Then I found it. Rebuild doesn't mean return. I know, she said. It means rewire. We made a new plan. We brought our mess to the therapist. We told our mothers in ways that made them feel the gift of having something to fix, and then quietly took the gift away again. We unautomated most of the apartment. We picked a night a week where the rule is no rules, no scripts, no babies. We failed. We tried. We failed better. I discovered the indignity and relief of crying during a movie about chefs. She discovered that anger looks good on her when she points it at expectations and not at a man who corrects the spacing between coasters when he's scared. Months later, we were sitting on the floor building a flat-pack bookshelf because cliches are what hold the world together when you're not looking. And my phone buzzed. New device. Joined Julian iPhone. I stared. I had never removed the QR code from the counter. The network is generous to ghosts. Maya saw my face and went very still. It's the old QR, she said. I had the girls from the gallery over to plan the summer show. He must have walked in with one of them and auto-joined. I didn't. I held up a hand that meant I know, and I did. The log showed a 1-minute lease and then a drop. The world had bumped into us and kept going. We replaced the QR code with a new one and printed it on a card that said, "Welcome," in a font that didn't make me feel stupid for believing we still are. We added a device quarantine step to our party setup. We made cookies. We invited Cam and his grease and his kindness. We invited our therapist because she kept saying she didn't need proof we existed outside of the office, and we thought that was adorable. Sometimes the life you get is not the one you harden by force. Sometimes it's the one you let update without clicking later for the rest of your marriage. Last week, I found our old Goodnight Scene buried under my scripts like a toy at the back of a drawer. I tapped it without ceremony. The lights drifted down. The blinds did their theater. Rain at 15% filled the corners. Maya was in the kitchen, humming a song that doesn't exist on any service. She turned, surprised. I forgot how nice that is, she said. Me too, I said. We stood there, two people who had learned each other from scratch again and listened to manufactured weather together. I didn't think about logs. She didn't think about doors. We just let the room mean here. There is one more thing. It's small, but small is where the truth lives. We named the new door code for 4-5 on, not because we were being coy, but because we wanted something that didn't belong to the past. On the keypad, I labeled it home. It isn't poetry, it's a setting. Sometimes she keys it in. Sometimes I do. Sometimes the system hiccups and we laugh like people who survived a draft. On the router, in the DHCP reservations, Miles' iPhone still exists, a ghost entry pointing to a Mac that will never request an address here again. I haven't deleted it, not to punish anyone. To remind myself that networks remember and people choose. When I walk past the QR code on the counter, I still see the word welcome. And sometimes it catches in my chest like a sob, trying out an imitation of a laugh. Then it passes. I make the coffee, I drink it, I forget to. If you need a villain, there are easier stories. If you need a lesson, I have one, and it's unromantic. Betrayal doesn't always arrive as a storm. Sometimes it installs in the background while you're answering email. The fix isn't a purge, it's a patch. You don't roll back to the vulnerable version. You ship a new build. We're on 2.4.7 now. It runs hotter, it crashes sometimes, the release notes are badly written. But we're both still choosing update, Kate. If you made it to the end of the story, thank you. It means a lot. New stories like this one are posted every single day, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss one. And if this story touched you, please give it a like. It really helps more people find our content.